Hi everyone, Jean here with another program brought to you by the Pamunkey Regional Library. I'm here today at the Rockville branch and we actually have a guest speaker. The program is going to be called Aging Gracefully. It will be a three-part series with today's topic being what is normal aging. So our presenter is Carolyn Velletri. She has practiced occupational therapy for over 45 years. She received her Master's of Science degree from Virginia Commonwealth University. She has worked with adults in private and public sectors, inpatient, rehabilitation, home health, and work settings. For several years, she has had her own practice. She taught as an adjunct faculty at VCU for 10 years. In 2003, she became a certified case manager. She worked full-time for Bon Secours St. Mary's Hospital as a case manager for 8 years until the summer of 2013 when she semi-retired with her husband Rich. Shortly afterward, they adopted a rescue dog named Colby, who is now a registered therapy dog, and he comes to our branch, the Rockville branch, and participates in the Read to Rover program through Caring Canines. So, as I said, our first topic today is going to be what is normal aging. So our format for the program today is going to be kind of a question and answer kind of thing. I have asked some of our patrons if they have any questions about aging, and I'm going to be presenting them to Carolyn, and she will, I'm sure, provide us with some really great answers. So let's get on with the program. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Carolyn Velletri.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you to the library for having me. I'm excited to do this little series on normal aging. And let me start by saying that there are different names for normal aging. There are things like primary aging, pure aging, usual aging, or sort of the fancy word is senescence. What I really want to do is talk to you about what aging is and the process we go through and what you can or cannot do about it, but some things to expect. So that's pretty much what this series is going to be about. So what is aging? It's the process we go through from conception until death with just the passage of time. Many things affect the way we age. So the family we're from, our history, things we're supposed to or we're exposed to, such as the sun or injuries, our daily habits, and our lifestyle. It can be hard to tease out what is normal or what more or less everyone can expect. On top of that, certain things will happen at certain times in our lives on a timeline, but that's really different for each person. So basically the bottom line is all individuals age at different rates. So for example, we're all aware of needing to wear glasses or have some kind of corrective actions taken around the age of 45. You find yourself holding your reading material out here.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's harder to focus on things up close. That's part of normal aging. Most people, but not all, will experience. Also, we find as we age that it's harder to adapt to light and dark changes. So driving at night can become an issue, bright sunlight, those kinds of things. The development of cataracts is also a part of normal aging. Vets use the development of cataracts and their severity to figure out how old our dogs and cats are because they can't always tell us, especially if they're a rescue dog like Colby. Vets use this to say, hey, they're maybe 10 years old, or we can't really tell because they're somewhere in the middle. But that exposure that the dogs and cats have to the sun is damaging, and those rays speed up the process. So wearing sunglasses is important. But somewhere along the way, you can pretty much plan on developing cataracts. or that's where the lens thickens and blurs the vision. That process, developing cataracts, holding your reading material out, the adjustment to light and dark is all part of normal aging. And that's really, really different than the development of a disease like macular degeneration or glaucoma or something like that. Those are not part of normal aging, and they're not something that you should really expect. All of this is confusing because certain things happen to us at certain ages, but many things happen to older people. And they may be the things that are happening might be part of normal aging, or they might be part of some disease that is based on our heredity, the exposure, like the exposure to loud noises, our lifestyle. So today, what we're going to focus on is what you can expect as part of normal aging, and just a little bit about what you can and cannot do about it. Nothing I say is the gospel, and nothing takes place of communicating with your own doctors. You always want to consult a medical professional about your unique situation. And here's a warning. Be careful with online searches. Be sure you're reading information from a reliable source, and we'll talk more about that later.
Absolutely.
So let's get started. We asked some friends and some family and coworkers about some of their concerns, and I'm going to try to address those concerns one by one. So Jean, what's our first question?
All right, Carolyn. So our first question, what is normal cognitive decline and how do I prevent it? What is normal aging versus dementia?
Okay, so the question basically is, what is normal cognitive decline and how do I prevent it? And what is normal aging versus dementia?
Right.
This is like the number one thing about aging that people are concerned about. Almost everybody is concerned when they notice something along the way that they're maybe not quite as sharp as they used to be. So maybe we can't bring up the name or the date of something we're trying to remember, or we're stumbling around trying to find the right word. And it might take longer to learn new things. The good news is that this is typical. This is all part of normal aging, and it is not a sign of dementia.
Yay.
So take a deep breath. I do hate to say this, but after about the age of 25, the brain and our thinking skills do begin to decline. However, that's part of normal aging. Sometimes memory problems are due to health issues, and they can be treatable. Also, they can be due to emotional problems. Like you may notice that if you're under stress or you have a lot of anxiety, that you may have some trouble remembering things or even following your normal routines. Depression can make a person more forgetful, but that confusion and forgetfulness that's caused by emotions usually goes away, but you might need help with that, so you would want to talk with your doctor about that. There are some things that may be reasons to be alarmed and possible signs of dementia. And it's important to remember dementia is not a disease in and of itself. It is really a cluster of problems with cognition, like memory, sequencing and activity, and those kinds of things. So what's alarming? Alarming is getting lost in familiar surroundings. Alarming is not driving down the road and for a second saying, now where was I going? Alarming is driving by where you're going, ending up in another place, and not knowing where you are. That's alarming. Not recognizing or knowing a familiar person when this is not, meeting somebody from
right?
Right. This is like all of a sudden, I don't know you, Jean. Mm-hmm. Okay. Forgetting a whole event. You've just gone somewhere, and your spouse or someone starts talking to you about it and you don't even remember it happening. These are alarming kinds of things. And we all know asking the same question, repeating the same story over and over. Others, like that whole thing with repeating something over and over, are going to notice changes, and they may mention them to you. And that's when seeing and discussing these changes and concerns with your doctor is critical, because there are treatments available. Dementia is not part of normal aging. We all know an older person who's as sharp as a tack, and someone younger who can't really function all that well because of it. So, okay, it's not part of normal aging, but we know we're sort of on the decline from 25, so what can you do to keep your brain working at its best? It's kind of unusual, but believe it or not, the most important thing you can do for your brain is to keep physically active.
Yes.
That's right. Additionally, it's important to challenge the brain with new material. While crossword puzzles and brain games and things like that are important, the real challenge comes for the aging brain when it has to learn something new.
Like
So,
an instrument or something like that.
a language, just, take a course and something, like I often think about, gosh, I wish I had paid more attention to geography in high school, because then I might know where I'm going when I'm driving somewhere, and what's different about it. So you want to challenge yourself and learn something new and different. Online learning, like this little class, is a great way to keep your mind active. So in summary, with all of that, we are going to decline slightly as we age, but dementia or a cluster of those really serious things I talked about are not part of normal aging. Okay, what's next?
All right, so here's one we can all identify with. The question is, everyone seems to wrinkle and turn gray as we age. What is happening?
Okay, so what's happening? Why are we all getting wrinkles and turning gray as we get older? Well, a couple things are happening. As we age, some of our skin, not some of it, all of it, loses some of its elasticity or sort of that spring back ability, and our skin also gets drier and thinner. That's because the skin makes less natural oil as you age, so wrinkles develop. You might notice, I know we had a neighbor one time who sat out at the pool all the time in unprotected sun exposure, and we saw her like years later, and she...
Caught up with her.
Yeah, it did catch up with her. That tan looked great early on, but later on, she clearly looked 10, 15 years older than she really was. So that leathery appearance, the sun speeds up the process. You might also notice that African Americans look younger and Caucasians look older than their age. And that's because color in the skin helps to keep it more supple and moist, and the wrinkles don't come quite as quickly. But sooner or later, we're all going to get wrinkles, and what can you do? So there are a couple of things. One is that hot water is very drying for the skin. So it's pretty important to take warm versus hot baths or showers, and also to use a moisturizer after that exposure. You want to protect your skin from the sun, and tell your doctor if you notice any changes. So protection can mean some kind of lotion, but it can also mean just wearing long sleeves or a wide-brimmed hat.
And Carolyn, I've heard that we should wear sunscreen every day.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Especially on your face. And people will say, well, the UV index, the sun's rays are not that strong. Well, that's true, but are you really going to keep track of today the UV index is 10, and tomorrow it's 3, and I go to the mountains and I go skiing, and it's, you know, whatever. So it's just best.
Make it a habit.
Make it a habit.
Right.
Just do it, especially your face. Finally, the other thing is if you smoke, this is a good reason to quit, because smoking just in and of itself can cause wrinkles. And let me just say, as a former smoker, so I feel like I can say anything I want, smoking cigarettes is the single worst thing you can do for your health at any age. Okay? So as for the gray hair, we have pigment cells in our hair follicles, and they kind of gradually die off. So when there are few pigment or coloring cells in a hair follicle, that strand of hair no longer contains as much melanin, and it becomes more transparent. So it becomes gray or silver or white as it grows. You'll notice some people get much grayer or white at an earlier age and at different levels. Some people kind of go around the edges, other people go full-blown head of gray hair, and a lot of that is who your family is, what your genes are, your heredity. So, and it's interesting because there are surnames like White and Gray and Whitehead, which is where, you know, some of that came from. And you'll notice, you may know somebody and you may see they're white and they probably have a Whitehead in their ancestry. The other thing is stress can hasten the process of gray hair. It really can. We all watched former President Obama turn gray right before our eyes during his presidency.
Yeah. I think it grays all the presidents.
There might be a good reason for that. Yeah. So anyway, we're all going to wrinkle. We're all going to turn gray. There are some things you can do, but you can't do much about your hair, but color it and take good care of it and use good products. Okay, so what else do people want to know about?
Okay, I really need to hear what you say about this one, Carolyn. How does my sleep change, and how can I get a better night's rest?
Yeah, well, you know, I wish I could quite figure this all out myself. And I read a lot about it, and there's a lot to read about it. Sleep does change, but only slightly as you age. And there are a number of things you can do about them. Most of those are habits, and they're not all that easy. So let's talk about it a little bit. We know, you know, babies sleep all the time, right? And then teenagers have to have extra sleep. But most adults need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep to function, and that's going to change a little bit. As we age, we might want to go to bed earlier. We might get up earlier, and we probably don't have quite that level of restorative sleep that we used to have. We might wake up, we have to go to the bathroom, or we start thinking about something, or whatever. My doctor told me one time that was the chief complaint of everybody over 50 years old was, I don't sleep like I used to. And I know for myself, I used to be able, if I was really tired, I could put my head down and right here, right now, and I'd be asleep in 3 minutes. No, that's not anymore. It's all changed. So there are a couple of things. Medications can affect sleep. So, you know, also pain. If you're in some kind of pain, you might notice that you don't get as that restorative sleep. Don't feel good the next day. So those kinds of things you're going to really have to talk to your doctor about. But there's tons of things that you can do if you don't find that there's a medical reason for your sleep disruption, like sleep apnea or a medication problem or something like that. So What you can do, well, one thing I will say, this is my personal opinion because I've seen what happens to people. You want to avoid sleep aids if you can, and be careful with your own prescription over the counter. If your doctor prescribes something, then that's important because sleep is important. It's very important. Some of the things that you can do are follow a regular sleep schedule, go to sleep, get up at the same time every day, and I mean every day, Saturday, Sunday, vacation days, every day, okay? Take fewer naps, avoid stimulants. This is pretty easy. Avoid a stimulant such as coffee or chocolate after lunch. You want to be really careful because they will. I can have a brownie for dinner at somebody's house and go home and I will be wide awake that night. Okay? You want to have a bedtime routine. I go in, I put on my nightgown, I brush my teeth, that sort of thing. And I just read this, actually yesterday, and I kind of laughed to myself. One thing you can do is a few minutes of prayer, meditation, or deep breathing right before you go to sleep. And I'm like, well, maybe there was something about saying your prayers, but kneeling by the edge of the bed and saying your prayers before you go to bed, or, obviously meditating, or some kind of behavior that calms yourself down and gets you ready to sleep. The National Institutes on Aging has some really great information printed on various aging topics, including getting a good night's sleep. And these are available for downloading, National Institute on Aging.
And we're also going to have some of those available at the Rockville branch too, for you to pick up.
They're great. This is a good, reliable source of information, and they all have the little age page, and it would give you more in-depth information and resources on a lot of the topics that we're talking about today. What's the next question?
Okay, so as we age, chances are we all start to need to take some sort of medication, most of us.
Right.
What is the best way to remember and take medications?
Okay. How do I remember to take medications? All right, well, this is no surprise. There's no one best way to remember to take your medications. It really depends on the individual and the complexity of whatever that medication regime might be. I never realized, and this is years ago, how complex a medication regime could be until I had a dog with an autoimmune disease. And he would need like one medication 3 times a day, one medication every other day, one medication as needed, one medicated bath every 10 days, a regular bath every, whatever. It went on and on and on. And really the only way that I could keep track of that and all the complexities of it was on a paper calendar, just for him, that I could refer to and check off as we went along. These days, there are a lot more mechanisms than paper and pencil to help you. One of the simplest ways, and you've all seen the little medication boxes, is to fill it, and my personal recommendation is to fill it once a week and then just take it. One of the benefits of this actually happened to me this morning, was as I'm sitting and talking and having breakfast, did I take my medication? Oh yeah, Tuesday's gone. We're good. Okay? There are more complex boxes. There are boxes that are like morning noon, night, bedtime, that sort of thing. Then there are all kinds of other mechanisms that are more high-tech than a pill box, like putting reminders on your phone. There are actual little pill dispenser types things that will spit pills out. I mean, it can get very complex, and you might need some help setting all of that up. The problem with some of those kinds of things is that you have to be attentive to them. So if your phone's in the other room and it beeps for your 10 a.m. med, oh well, you know. Some people have family members call them, that sort of thing. What I found works best for most people, and this is a common thing, you know, taking your medications, and it's really important because especially after discharge from a hospital, there are two things that'll land you back in the hospital, and one is not filling and taking your prescriptions as they have been prescribed, and the second is not following up with your doctor. So it is pretty important. If you can couple taking your medication with something in your routine, then it should go better. So if you take a medication twice a day, roughly they're supposed to be 12 hours apart. If you take a medication with breakfast and then at bedtime, that can be a good thing. If you compare it with a meal, that's helpful, or something else like bedtime. Lots of medication, not lots. Some medications like thyroid medication and medications for reflux, you're supposed to take first thing in the morning, like an hour before you have breakfast. And I know my mother-in-law used to keep a little glass next to her bed and put her pill out every night so that when she first woke up in the morning, she had her water ready, or juice, or whatever it was, and took her pill, and then went about the business of the day. Really, the best summary is try to pair it with something that you have to do during the day and figure out what little trigger is going to work best for you. I think the one thing that doesn't work for most people is having a bunch of pill bottles out, and whenever they need a medication, they go to it and just do it. I think at the very least, a little pill box is a good idea. Okay. I know somebody had a question about driving issues, and we're going to do another section in this series where I talk about tips to keep you in your own home. And I think that driving question is going to fit better there. So
We'll skip that one.
we'll skip that one for now, and stay tuned for the series probably coming in the late spring. Okay. What else is going on?
You ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
Okay, this one bothers my husband. He loves food. The question is, I have noticed changes in my hearing, and I do not seem to enjoy the taste of food like I used to.
Okay, I don't think that I will ever not be able to taste and smell food. But anyway, let's hope not, because if I really can't, there might be something really wrong. But hearing loss is the third most common physical condition after arthritis and heart disease. Hearing changes as we age, and there is normal hearing loss, and then we're going to talk just briefly about exposure kinds of hearing loss. So the normal aging process is that we have trouble taking in really high frequencies and really low frequencies. And what that interferes with is our ability to hear speech and to understand what people are saying. Because normal speech goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And an older person, you know you're being spoken to, they often might not hear the beginning of what's going on. It's important to give some visual cues and take in visual cues. Also, the other piece of this is if it's a crowded room or there are lots of distractions going on, it's more difficult in the normal hearing loss to pick up on that. So if it's bothersome to you, and it likely will be,
Or to other people.
or to other, to your husband or whoever it might be, then you need to get your hearing checked by a qualified hearing specialist. And I don't mean the hearing aid companies that you see advertised on television. No offense to them. An audiologist. You want to go to a specialist in hearing. You know, frankly, the hearing aid companies want to sell you the hearing aids, and you need more than that. You need to take care of this and take care of yourself. So it can be possible that there are conditions other than the normal hearing at play, and that's where they can pick up on that. So if you've had loud exposures in the past, I know my grandfather was what is referred to as a tool and die maker. So he worked in a factory type situation, and there was a lot of exposure to really loud machinery and that sort of thing, and that affected his hearing. And his hearing aids were like this because they were, you know, many, many, many years ago. So it's important, and I wonder, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, people that have earbuds in and they're listening to like super loud music, where are their ears going to be down the road? Because that's exposure, you know, that's a problem. So there's also like the whole taste and smell thing with eating, and when you get older, these senses do change. And what you find is exactly what your husband is saying, that food just doesn't taste quite like it used to, and that's normal. Changes in smell or taste can be a sign of a larger problem. Like one of the things with the coronavirus that you'll hear is the loss of smell and taste. They're very connected. So, you know, one goes with the other. So you want to be sure to discuss that with your physician. The problem is people tend to add salt to things to enhance. They can taste it more, and or sugar, depending on what we're talking about. And that practice can be pretty unhealthy. So a better alternative is, low sodium types of spices or hot sauce, any kind of spice, any kind of herb, load them on. They're more than likely not gonna really have a health deterrent. So we're gonna expect some normal things with hearing, smell, and taste as we age. Fortunately, that's just the way it is. Okay?
Okay, you ready for the next question?
I am ready.
All right. I don't think people realize how common this next question is, or this next problem actually is. The question is, how does my balance change as I age, and how can I improve it?
Okay. So the question is about balance. I can't go and talk about balance without talking about cardiovascular health and flexibility and strengthening. They all sort of go together. Specifically with balance, a bunch of things come together with aging, and it's a little technical, and we're not going to get into that too much. But we have kind of running all the time our systems in place where we know where we are in space from head to toe. And a lot of things contribute to that. So our vision contributes to it. And if you don't think it does, put a blindfold on and try to stand on one foot or something like that. So vision gives us information. There are mechanisms in our ears that give us information about where we are, and our hearing. And then our whole body is shoving information up to the brain about where you are in space. And my feet are planted on the floor. Oh, my foot is up on the step. You know, what is going on? So we're getting a lot of information. And when some of these factors are diminished, because we know now, you know, our vision might change, our hearing, and so forth, other brain kinds of things, then we might have diminished balance. So it's extremely important, and you may have heard this many times, to focus on balance as a part of a healthy exercise routine. Why? Because we want to reduce falls. Okay, as you get older and you fall, the consequences are a little different than when you're 8 years old or even 21 years old. You know, there are other things at play. So you really want to work on balance as part of an exercise routine. There are just a few little things you can do. You can, you know, stand in front of your mirror in the bathroom and hold on and try to stand on one foot for a little while, and then see after a while, maybe, I don't know, a few days, a week, 10 days, that you can let go, and then try the other foot. Standing up from a chair without leaning on it or pushing up from it to help with that core and your balance. And of course, you want to discuss it with your doctors. This fall, in the third part of our series, we're going to discuss many things related to falls, and I'll talk a little bit more about balance. I mean, you can actually have a test done typically by a physical therapist to check on your balance, and then recommendations of things. There are many things to work on, just like with all the types of exercise. It's also important to maintain strength and flexibility as well as endurance, which is known as, in a lot of venues, cardio. Endurance builds your energy or staying power. It builds the muscles in your heart, basically, through activities such as walking or swimming, usually recommended for about 30 minutes most days of the week. The strength exercises are going to build muscles, and that can help with balance as well. And finally, flexibility keeps you moving freely through space. So stretching, yoga, those kinds of things can improve your flexibility. You do want to check with your doctor before beginning any exercise routine, please. Please check. Make sure that they feel like it's a good thing for you and that they're kind of on board with it. And if you go to any kind of fitness center or gym, that sort of thing, you typically have to have your doctor sign off on that participation. Okay? Hand in hand with exercise is, guess what? What we eat. As we age, our metabolism naturally slows down. I've heard roughly each decade, there's some pretty major changes. So we need to take in less calories and do the same amount of work. Oh no, I hate that.
Yeah,
Don't you
so
hate
do I.
that?
Yeah, I do.
I hate that. I had a really good friend who was a dietitian, and she basically said, Carolyn, this is it. I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to write, and maybe it's out there. I don't even know because I've lost track of her. But she said the basic book is going to be called Eat Less and Do More. So that really, though, is the key to maintaining a healthy weight. Eat less and do more. You might be thinking, I don't want to eat. Food doesn't taste as good. Fresh foods are expensive. It's hard to eat right. It can be expensive to eat right, but you can work through some of those issues. There are many, many tips and pieces of advice, but it takes time and effort to figure out what's going to work for you. It might take a session with a registered dietitian to help you get started or to continue in the right direction. And I'll give you a warning. You want to be prepared to hear all the things that you don't want to hear, like cut out sodas or don't eat donuts anymore, or whatever it might be. Things like avoiding sugar, eating more fruits and vegetables, taking in more fiber, watching your salt, and on and on. And, oh yeah, eating smaller portions. All the things we don't want to hear are usually the things that involve being more healthy.
I have a question, Carolyn.
Yes,
I've also heard recently that as you age, your thirst diminishes too. And I think we all know how important it is to drink. So that's something we need to keep watch on, correct? Like
Correct.
how much we drink.
how much we drink. How much we drink is very important. It's pretty easy to drink too much or too little. And I'm not an expert on that. I really, I've heard, and this is just a kind of a hearsay type of thing, that it's good if your urine has some color in it, but not too much and not odor. And I think that's probably pretty safe. So you can pretty much, if you don't, have any color, you're probably drinking a little too much. Some medications require people to drink a lot more because they can get dehydrated pretty quickly. But yes, I think the tendency as we get older is not to drink probably what we need to drink. And there are some people that all along the way don't drink what they should be doing. So as we age, we're going to lose muscle mass. We're going to need, because of that, we're going to need to be more active, exercise. Just a little bit of exercise every day can help you stay healthy. And again, you want to get the advice of a medical professional before you start any exercise program. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right.
Ready for the next one?
I am ready for the next one.
I am concerned about cancer and heart disease. What is the timeline for these diseases?
Okay. So the most important part of this question about my concerns about cancer and heart disease and the timeline for these things is the word disease. Cancer and heart disease often strike older people. They're not a part of normal aging. Cancer is not a part of growing old. It tends to happen when we're older, but cancers also happen in babies and children and all along the way. We've mentioned there are several things you can do to help adapt to normal aging, and a lot of these things also, as they're prevention kinds of methods for these diseases. And again, these are a lot of the things we hear all of the time: following a nutritious diet, exercising regularly, staying mentally and socially active, following a preventive health regime. And what does that mean? It kind of means all those things that you can do yourself in your regular life and your daily routine, but it also means getting a physical every year and making sure that you're getting all the kinds of tests that you should be getting for your age. For example, the thyroid might not begin to function as well, and that can make people like hyperactive or very lethargic and inactive. So a simple blood test can tell a physician, is the thyroid functioning the way it should, and then a prescription could be provided. And
right. Very treatable.
Very treatable. So you want to make sure that you're getting that annual physical and the tests and kinds of things that you need. And right along with that, and I don't think people really realize this in a lot of cases, how important your oral hygiene, your mouth hygiene, is to your overall health, and how important it is to get regular cleanings and, brush your teeth, all that stuff. Let's see, what else? maybe an annual dermatology or skin specialist appointment. If you had exposure, like I know I did, we didn't even have things. My sister and I were talking about it the other night. Well, we didn't have, you know, sunscreen. You put on like baby oil to try to tan. And in my family, that didn't work very well because that kind of led to hives and other problems. So I get an annual exam by a dermatologist. So you want to catch things before they become some kind of a full-blown condition. Prevention. All right, do we have any more questions?
Well, I think you've answered all the questions that I've received, Carolyn. Is there anything that you can think else that you would like to add?
There's one more thing I want to talk about, and I mentioned it in the beginning, because there's so much information out there now. You know, we want to know something, and it's like, let's Google that.
Dr. Google.
You know, and it's good and it's bad. You know, that makes people more aware. You can get some good information. But I want to issue that warning again. It's really, really important to know where the information is coming from. The National Institutes of Health website is a great place to start. The large professional organizations, so the American Physical Therapy Association or the Parkinson's Foundation, things like that. Well-known medical schools can be really good sources. There's an excellent handout, and Jean has those here. You.
Yep, I do.
Eugene, have those here available. It's also online that helps you determine what kinds of questions. How can you sort out or vet out where things are that you should be listening to. There's the age page whole thing about this, and you can stop by and pick one up. Some of the questions you want to ask yourself is like, who wrote this? You know, if I'm looking up something on nutrition, is it a registered dietitian, or, you know, is it somebody that just thinks they know a lot about eating right?
Just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true.
That's right. And it's hard because we've evolved from a society where when things were printed, they were accurate, more or less, and we believe them. And now that's not necessarily, in fact, in many cases, is not true. So you want to know who wrote it. You want to know, was it reviewed? Who reviewed it? When was it written? So, you know, things change, and they change fast, especially in medicine. Look at the coronavirus. It's a perfect example of how good information even a year ago is not good information anymore. And you want to keep up with things. The other piece is, does it offer a believable solution? I mean, all I have to do is sit there and watch television like for a couple of hours and look at the ads. And yes, can you spend a fortune on something to remove wrinkles from your face? If you want to do that, you can, but if it's probably not believable, it's probably a problem, okay? So you want to be careful. I trust places like Mayo Clinic. I think Mayo Clinic has some really good information. Johns Hopkins University Medical Center, also really, really good. Consumer Reports on Health. They all, if you look at those sites, you'll see when it was written, who wrote it, who reviewed it, and those kinds of things. So it's good to really watch for your sources. There is absolutely, positively nothing that will substitute for talking to your medical professional, because everybody's unique. You know, nobody's developed from the same mold, and what's good for me might be bad for you, and vice versa. Something that happened with your friend or your family member doesn't mean that's going to work for you or that's what's going on. So you want to make sure that you seek medical advice for yourself and your unique situation. It never ceases to amaze me how complex we are. And when you think about it, all the things that have to work together, breathing, the circulation, the brain, the muscles, the bones, the digestion, it's actually kind of a miracle that anybody functions at all. But then on the other hand, we have an amazing ability to adapt to change and to bounce back from illness and injury. And we're quite the machine. So keep your machine in good order. Aging gracefully requires maintaining physical and mental health, prevention and avoiding disorders or catching them early, and remaining active and independent. It's never too late. It is never too late to begin to develop healthy habits. A nutritious diet, regular exercise, and staying mentally and socially active. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carolyn. I'd like to thank Carolyn Velletri for that excellent presentation today. It's certainly information that either we can use or we know somebody else who's close to us that could use. Carolyn also asked me to remind everyone that of course, if you have any questions with health, to always contact and speak with your doctor about that first. I would like to remind you to check out our calendar, our Pamunkey calendar, to keep your eye out for our next two programs in this series, which will be called, number 2 will be called Tips to Keep You in Your Home, and the third one will be Prevent Falls, Please.